Good morning. I have a little comment I'm going to make, and then I will jump into questions. Okay. So, again, what we're looking for in this throne speech is some clear indication that Mr. Trudeau is interested in or willing to or open to working with us. Because we know that if Mr. Trudeau just wants to stay in power, he can continue to find support from the Bloc or the Conservatives to stay in power. But if he wants to really make a difference in people's lives and invest in healthcare, invest in pharmacare, make it public and universal, stop taking Indigenous kids to court, tackle the climate crisis like we actually want to win it, then he can rely on us for support. And so he can't take us for granted. We are more than willing to work together, but we will not vote for something that doesn't align with what Canadians need. You know, we know that we need the ultra-wealthy to pay their fair share. If he wants to take some real action to make sure that the richest pay their fair share, yes, we're prepared to work with the Prime Minister. But if his goal is not to make Parliament work for people, then he can't count on our support. So in this throne speech, we're looking to see some signs that he's interested in doing what's right for people. And I've laid out 3 specific things that I wanted to see. I want to see that the Prime Minister is ready to stop taking Indigenous kids to court, that he's ready for some clear targets, really bold targets on reducing our emissions and some accountability, ending fossil fuel subsidies. And I want to see some commitments to universal public pharmacare for all, investments in healthcare, because we know that there's a crisis. These are some things I'm looking for in the throne speech. Donc, on est prêt de travailler ensemble. C'est important. Mais si le Premier ministre veut faire des choses pour améliorer la qualité de vie des gens, oui, il peut compter sur nous de travailler ensemble pour avancer les enjeux qui touchent les gens. Mais s'il veut rester en pouvoir, il a des options de travailler avec le Bloc ou les conservateurs. Mais s'il veut faire quelque chose vraiment pour améliorer la vie des gens, comme investir dans les soins de santé, comme arrêter de poursuivre les enfants autochtones dans les cours de justice, s'il est prêt de prendre des actions concrètes pour faire face à la crise climatique, oui, on est là pour travailler ensemble. Donc, ça c'est, en fait, ça c'est ce qu'on, donc on veut voir ces engagements dans le discours de Trump. On veut voir des engagements pour faire quelque chose de concret et on est prêt d'être ouvert et entendre ce qu'il va dire.
Can I just ask you about the Prime Minister's overheard comments at NATO? What did you make of them? And are you concerned in any way that the relationship with the U.S. and Donald Trump could be jeopardized?
Well, I'm concerned in the sense that there are many things to criticize Mr. Trump on, but making the Prime Minister late to a cocktail party is not one. I've raised my concerns. I think it's very problematic. I think it's very horrible, the treatment of people that are fleeing persecution, asylum seekers, kids being ripped out of the arms of their parents. Those are horrible things, and they could be criticized. The fact that Mr. Trump gave billions, maybe even trillions of dollars to the wealthiest in tax cuts, that's wrong. We should be investing in people. So there's certain things that I would criticize, but making me late to a cocktail party would not be one of the things that I criticize.
Est-ce que vous pensez que c'était une erreur diplomatique de la part de M. Trudeau, ces commentaires qu'il a fait? Est-ce que ça peut endommager la relation entre le Canada et les États-Unis?
Je pense que la critique, c'était pas une critique qui a du sens. Si on veut critiquer M. Trump, on peut être honnête. Le traitement des demandeurs d'asile est horrible. C'est quelque chose qu'on peut critiquer. Le fait qu'il veut continuer d'aider les plus riches, ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on peut critiquer. Mais le fait qu'il a parlé trop et il a créé il était un peu tard pour une soirée, ce n'est pas une raison de critiquer le président.
Monsieur Singh, c'était pas tellement sur le fait qu'il a critiqué que le fait qu'il s'est moqué de lui. Le problème, il est plutôt là, que M. Trudeau, M. Macron et d'autres étaient tous ensemble en train de se moquer de Donald Trump. Est-ce que se moquer de Donald Trump est un problème? Est-ce que c'est un homme respectable ou non? On peut dire n'importe quoi.
Donc, comme j'ai dit, la façon de parler différemment devant les portes fermées et parler différemment publiquement, c'est ce qu'on a vu avec M. Trudeau plusieurs fois. Il donne des belles paroles en public pour la relation avec la communauté autochtone, mais devant les portes fermées, il se moque des militants qui parlent de l'eau potable dans les communautés comme Grassy Narrows. Il parle souvent de l'importance d'investir dans les soins santé, mais après rencontrer les compagnies, les lobbyistes des compagnies pharmaceutiques, il a brisé ses promesses de réduire les coûts pour les médicaments. Donc, cette deux faces de parler une façon en public et une façon en privé, c'est quelque chose qu'on a déjà vu avec M. Trudeau.
Donc, vous êtes d'accord avec ce que M. Trump a dit, qu'il est un visage à deux faces?
C'est difficile de dire que je suis d'accord avec M. Trump parce que c'est difficile de dire ça, mais en fait, ce que j'ai déjà dit ça à plusieurs reprises, que oui, M. Trudeau a parlé et se présenté dans deux manières. Une manière publiquement et une manière privée, et c'est complètement différent. Et c'est toujours une question, c'est qui est le vrai M. Trudeau?
Mr. Singh,
Yeah, I get that. So what I've said often about Mr. Trudeau is that he certainly says some things in public and then says things very differently in private. For example, he talks about the importance of Indigenous relationships as being a priority in public, but in private, in a closed-door fundraiser with wealthy donors, he mocked and made fun of activists that were complaining about a legitimate concern about clean drinking water and mercury poisoning in Grassy Narrows. Very different approach in public and very different approach in private. And that's something that I've said before. There's many reasons to criticize Mr. Trump, but criticizing about making someone late to a cocktail party is not one. And these two Mr. Trudeau's in public and private is something that I've seen many times, and I think Canadians are starting to see more and more.
Mr. Singh,
I've openly said things about Mr. Trump. I've said that it was reported widely during the campaign. I think that he is someone that's done some really horrible things, and I think it's important to call that out. I would say that to his face, and I've said it publicly, and I believe it's important. We are very close friends with the United States, but a good friend also calls out a friend and says, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Putting kids in cages is wrong. Giving billionaires billions of dollars is wrong. I think it's important to be able to do that.
Do you expect
Mr.
abortion
Singh.
access to be a part of this throne speech? You brought up the Fredericton case, but we've seen no action so far.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure it's really clear. Under the Canada Health Act, the Prime Minister has a role to play to put pressure on provinces that are contravening that Health Act. And I believe very strongly that what's happening in Fredericton, the closing of this clinic, and the lack of funding for that clinic contravenes the Canada Health Act. It is wrong. And to me, it's meaningless to talk about a woman's right to choose unless you're willing to back that up by protecting that access to that right. And so that's what we're not seeing that. The Prime Minister is not using his tools that he has at his disposal to put pressure on the New Brunswick government to make sure that they keep that clinic open. I'll be going to Fredericton this weekend to show my support for keeping that clinic open. It's something I think is fundamental. The right to choose is a precious right, but it is meaningless unless it's backed up with real access. And that's what I'm going to be continue to put pressure on the Prime Minister to deliver. I just want to see it happen. I mean, I don't care if he says the words, as long as he actually delivers the message to the New Brunswick government that we need to keep this open, that we need to make sure it's funded. That's what I want to see.
Monsieur Singh, vous avez parlé d'une hausse des transferts aux provinces pour la santé. Les provinces se sont réunies à Mississauga cette semaine et ont réclamé justement qu'on hausse les transferts à 5,2 par année. Est-ce que vous endossez cette demande des provinces? Est-ce que vous en faites un cheval de bataille à la reprise des travaux parlementaires?
Donc, je suis tellement d'accord que le montant de financement pour les soins de santé pour les provinces sont moins qu'on a besoin. Donc, il faut augmenter les transferts. C'est complètement approprié comme demande. C'est quelque chose que je veux faire. Je pense qu'on peut faire les deux choses. Je pense qu'on peut faire un point de désaccord avec les premiers ministres des provinces. Je pense qu'il faut augmenter les transferts. Oui, je suis d'accord. Mais en même temps, je pense qu'il faut aussi avoir une assurance médicaments universelle et publique parce que les deux choses vont vraiment améliorer l'accès aux soins de santé. Et nous sommes le seul pays au monde qui a un système de santé universel, qui n'a pas un système d'assurance médicaments universel et public. Il faut faire les deux. Et ça, c'est la meilleure façon de régler la crise dans le système de santé qui existe à travers le pays.
Mais vous les avez entendus dire qu'ils n'en voulaient
Le nouveau
pas.
casus.
I was going to ask, we now know that the RCMP still owes $56,000 to the Aga Khan's Island as a result of Mr. Trudeau's vacation. What's your reaction to that, and what should happen now?
I think, like many Canadians, I was troubled when I first learned about the ethics violation, the fact that Mr. Trudeau was caught violating that. I think really what it speaks to is a disconnect with what Canadians are going through. And I look to the policies then. I look to his commitments in terms of the lack of realizing that we've got people that are struggling. The middle class prosperity is another example of this disconnect, breaching the ethics violation, putting a minister for middle class prosperity. When people are talking about inequality, and people are talking about the fact that they are having a hard time making ends meet, when they're talking about not being able to afford their medication, they can't afford home care for their loved ones, they can't get access to the health care they need. People are struggling, they can't find housing. And to talk about middle class prosperity, to violate the ethics codes, all show that Mr. Trudeau is not connected to what Canadians are really going through. And to me, that's really at the heart of this, that we've got more details that just emphasize how much Mr. Trudeau doesn't get what Canadians are going through, and his priorities also reflect that, and that's a problem.
What should happen now?
Well, I mean, I think that Mr. Trudeau's got a lot to answer for. He should answer to these questions. He created this problem in the first place and is found to breach the ethics code. I think the opportunity now is for Mr. Trudeau to realize that his priorities that in the past 4 years were not good enough. That's why we're in a minority government. And I'm hoping that he takes this opportunity to send a new message, that he's willing to turn the page on a past 4 years where he's not really made people a priority, and now let's start making Canadians a priority. That's what I want him to do, and that's why we've put forward some really clear paths for him to do that.
Sur l'assurance médicaments.
So a new question right here.
Your three demands in the throne speech, are those conditional for, like, do you want to see those in the throne speech? And if you don't see them, will your party not support the throne speech?
Yeah, so I've said before, I'm very prepared, and our team is very prepared to vote against the throne speech. We're willing to do that. But our goal in this parliament isn't to tear down the government. Our goal is to actually find ways to work together to benefit Canadians. And that's really the caveat. Our criteria, our requirement is that we don't want to just make Parliament work. We want to make it work for people. And if the Prime Minister wants to do things for people, he can count on us. If he doesn't want to work for people, then he's not going to count on our support. He can go to the Bloc or to the Conservatives if he just wants to run the government and to stay in power. But if he wants to do something real that's going to actually tackle the problems that people are worried about right now, climate crisis, housing, healthcare, we are there. We can work on those things together. One follow-up, and then we'll come to.
You mentioned in your demand the clear targets. What exactly does that mean, and do you expect that to be in the front speech?
I don't know what's going to be in the throne speech, but clear targets for fighting the climate crisis means science-based targets, targets that would help us be in line with what we know. The evidence is out that we've got to keep warming to 1.5 degrees. And so we need some targets that are in line with that. And we also need some accountability. We know that government set targets and then miss them. That's not good enough. But we know what we can do, and what something we proposed during the campaign, something that we're proposing again now, is that if we put in accountability mechanisms, we can actually make sure that governments are held to account. And it's worked. In the United Kingdom, the accountability measures they put in place to keep the government on track have kept the government on track to reducing emissions.
But what about
That's what I want to see.
What about the fact that they were out celebrating the construction of the pipeline yesterday? So you can talk about emission reduction, but that's what they were doing yesterday.
I mean, that's something I disagree with. I've long said I think this is the wrong use of our public dollars, that it's wrong to be putting public dollars into building the pipeline. Billions of dollars could be spent in helping communities that are struggling right now with job loss by giving them supports to create sustainable economies where people have long-lasting jobs that also reduce our emissions. There is a lot more that we can do with that money, and it's wrong that the government
Right
is
off the
spending
bat,
it on that.
Right off the bat, there's probably a problem with that demand that you've got on the throne speech. So which demand is the most important? Like you're putting out a list there, but what if they don't meet any of them?
Well, it's up to the government to make their priorities known, and they're going to have to answer to Canadians at the end of the day. If they don't want to work with us, and we're saying we're in it for people, we want to make life better for people, and they're choosing not to work with us, then they're going to have to go to Canadians and say that's what they did, and we'll let Canadians know we were ready to work to make life better. And if the Liberals don't want to do that, they're going to have to answer to Canadians. That's at the end of the day, Canadians are going to be the ones that answer that question.
Est-ce qu'on peut revenir
Did
sur
you wanna-
l'assurance médicaments?
Just one new question, then I'll come right back to you.
I'm just wondering, what your conditions actually are. You said you're prepared to vote against the throne speech, so what's the bar? What does it absolutely need to have?
Well, we've laid out three things that we want to see. And those are some of the three things that would give us a sense that this government is willing to work towards making life better for Canadians. I'm going to reserve our judgment as a team until after we hear from the throne speech, and we'll make our decision then. But we've laid out what we would need for support. Anything less than that, then we'll have to discuss and see where we go from there. But those are some. Oui.
Donc, si on peut revenir sur l'assurance médicaments, je comprends que vous n'êtes pas d'accord avec eux, mais vous avez entendu tous les premiers ministres des provinces dire lundi qu'ils n'en voulaient pas de l'assurance médicaments. Étant donné que c'est de compétence provinciale, vous proposez faire ça comment exactement si eux n'en veulent pas?
Et c'est exactement le même débat qu'on a eu il y a quelques années, qu'on a proposé l'idée d'avoir un système de santé à travers le pays. C'était la même chose. On a eu beaucoup de gens qui étaient contre ça. Mais à ce moment, c'est une fierté du pays. C'est une fierté du pays qu'on a un système de santé universel. Donc, dans le même cas, si on a une proposition, et on propose d'aider des gens en donner l'argent pour s'assurer que chacun dans la province peut avoir accès aux médicaments. C'est au premier ministre des provinces de dire à la population pourquoi on n'a pas accès aux médicaments universels, mais les autres provinces en ont. Donc, je propose je sais qu'à travers le pays, il y a une grande majorité des gens qui pensent que ça, c'est tellement important d'avoir accès aux médicaments universels. Je pense que les gens ont raison. Ils ont raison et je suis d'accord avec les gens, la population canadienne, qui veulent avoir un système d'assurance médicaments universel.
Une autre pensée, M. Singh, sur les armes d'assaut. Le gouvernement dit qu'il veut interdire les armes d'assaut de type militaire d'ici 1 an, idéalement avant l'été. Est-ce que c'est assez rapide à vos yeux?
Je veux que le gouvernement le fait tout de suite. Je suis d'accord. Il peut avoir l'appui de nous-mêmes. S'ils veulent le faire, on est prêt de le faire tout de suite. On a déjà dit que c'était une demande des municipalités qui veulent le faire, d'avoir le pouvoir d'interdire les armes en preux, mais aussi nationalement, c'est important d'avoir aussi d'interdire les armes d'assaut aussi. Donc, je suis d'accord. Et si le gouvernement veut le faire tout de suite, on est prêt de le faire.
Est-ce que c'est trop long d'ici l'été? Est-ce que c'est trop long d'ici l'été?
Je ne comprends pas pourquoi le délai. Et il peut le faire tout de suite et on est d'accord. Donc, pourquoi le délai?
What are your thoughts on small modular nuclear reactors? Ontario, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan have partnered. Should the federal government jump in?
I don't think that that's the way to go forward in terms of making real investments in renewable energy. I think renewable energy is the path forward, and we've got an abundance, and we haven't really tapped into that. Wind power, solar power, geothermal power, I think that's the future, and there's amazing opportunities to connect jurisdictions in Canada that have low-cost renewable energy, like BC, Manitoba, and Quebec, with those jurisdictions that don't. I think that's where we should be putting our efforts. I think that's where we'll have a longer-term solution for good, clean energy at affordable rates. I think there's massive concerns around cost overages and sustainability when it comes to nuclear as a solution for energy, and that's why I prefer renewable sources.
Your first vote to actually bring down the government is not a vote on the throne speech, it's actually the business of supply. How are you going to vote on that?
We will make an announcement about that closer to that date, but I can say that the idea, we want to, again, our goal is not to tear down government. We're not looking for opportunities to tear down government without a purpose. And supply motions to keep government running aren't the way to send a message about what our priorities are and what Canadians' priorities are. So I can kind of hint that that's not the way to make the government do what's right. The way we push that is in things like the budget, and things like the throne speech, where we're setting the path for where the country goes to ensure that the country has enough money to pay its bills. That's something that makes sense to me, but we'll let you know when we're closer to the date.
So what you hear
This is your last question here.
throne speech is that, so your vote on supplying the government with more money, is that contingent on what you hear in the throne speech?
We'll give you more details on the way we vote on the supply management when we're closer to that date, but I can tell you that our priorities around the throne speech are really clear. We're willing to work with the government. We don't want to tear down government for no reason. We want to find productive and constructive ways to move forward, but they've got to be in the benefit of Canadians, and that's what I want to see. Thank you so much. Merci.
Hello again, I'm Martin Stringer, and you have been watching NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh after a caucus meeting. This is the beginning of the new season of caucus meetings as we wait for the return of Parliament, the opening of a new Parliament tomorrow.